Hey folks, Studio here. This is daily number 43. The date is July 5th, 2012, and today we're going to be talking about trading. Now, what is trading? What is this idea of trading in League of Legends? Because we trade all the time in real life. For example, you go to the store, you buy a soda, you give money, they give you a soda, you traded. I'm going to go ahead and this weekend I'll actually be trading my beard for dignity when I go ahead and shave it. So overall, we trade all the time in our lives, but what does it mean in League of Legends? So trading in League of Legends is a term that's very specific. It is when you go ahead and do something, and you will get some benefit out of it, and your opponent will get their own benefit out of it. And generally you want to do it so it's in your favor. So for example, if I auto-attack an enemy carry, and they auto-attack me back, I want to trade when there are creeps to go ahead and attack the dude who attacked me, or if I just do more damage, or if I have a Soraka, or if I'm about to go by and that guy will have to stay in lane and I can come back later and be like, yo, you're missing some HP, I'm going to bully you now. So trading is a very basic concept, whether you explicitly know you're doing it or not, it happens all the time. But I'm going to be focusing right now on trading as a team thing, as a team dynamic. Now, this game actually features team dynamic, but once again, they are not the people I'm focusing on. No offense to Team Dynamic, I love them. They're one of my favorite teams. I am very tight with Nintendo Dex and Paradoxical. So, unfortunately, the two games I'm doing today and for the last daily both involve them losing. That is not because I am on some anti-Team Dynamic campaign. It's because they're a good team and they play good teams, and I can get good examples from their games. I'm going to do something positive for them soon, don't worry about it. But we're going to talk about trading, and this was from the Leaguepedia Finals. So let me go ahead and jump into that game. And the heroes have not spawned. Let me go ahead and hit the play button for half a second. There we go. So, trading in this game is going to be based around the top lane. Team Dynamic has Akali. Now, Akali as a top laner, she's not too common right now. She's kind of shown her face a bit more in the scene lately, being played every now and then. And of course, Akali will be going up against Yuzuki's Vladimir. Now, Yuzuki's Vladimir will have problems with Akali later on, so if Akali is ahead of Yuzuki, she can just kind of attack him and kill him, which might sound obvious. I mean, a lot of people can do that, but Akali with her high damage and her high burst, if she does get enough of an advantage over her lane opponent, she's incredibly good at just murdering them non-stop. She's considered one of those more Snow-like characters in the game. There's a reason she got so much hype in solo queue at the beginning of Season 2, because Akali on her own would just do decently in lane, snowball, and you could not stop her. She wasn't even that good, like she was a good character, but she wasn't the best character in the game. But in solo queue back then, that's what she was considered just because she would snowball so hard. But Akali in this game, they want Zion's partner to snowball. You always want your top laner to snowball. You want every lane to snowball if possible, but if you have someone who's just really good at killing enemies when they're a bit ahead, you obviously want to try and get that snowball going. So, Maokai. Maokai is being played by the Odd One. The Odd One was actually substituting for Team Dynamic because Nintendo Dex could not attend. Very nice of him, babysitter Odd One, because everyone on Team Dynamic is under 18. But they have the Odd One, and he's on Maokai. So what's good about Maokai in this composition? Well, Vladimir. Let's go ahead and look at Vladimir. Look at his skill. Sanguine Pool. Sanguine Pool is kind of screwed over by Twisted Advance. Twisted Advance, I don't know if you know about the skill from Maokai, you can't dodge it with Flash, and you actually cannot dodge it with Sanguine Pool. If Vladimir goes underneath the ground, or into the blood, it looks like he's going underground, and Maokai Twisted Advances and does go underground himself, he will just be underground, catch Vladimir, and punish him. So, it's going to be a really easy lane to gank. There's a lot of gank potential. And if Akali gets ahead, she'll snowball. So clearly, what is the battle plan there from Team Dynamic? What do they want to do? They want to gank top lane and snowball Akali. Now that sounds obvious, but if you're oRbit, you're thinking the same thing. You're going ahead, you're looking at them and going, well, they kind of want to gank top, what should we do about it? And what is Hai's role going to be? Hai's role is going to be counter ganking. And we'll start seeing some really good examples of trading in a little bit once some of the ganks start going down, but I'm just going ahead setting this up for you. That is the perception from both teams. TD wants to gank top, oRbit knows TD wants to gank top. And League of Legends is part skill, but it's also part just knowing what your opponent wants to do, part, mind games. And we're going to see some examples of trading right now. This is just basic trading. Yuzuki's going to try and use Transfusion as much as possible on Zion Spartan. Zion Spartan's going to try and use Mark of the Assassin, Akali's Q, as much as possible onto Yuzuki. So they'll spam skills at each other. Yuzuki here, he goes ahead, he backs up, he auto-attacks twice, and wins a damage trade because Zion Spartan could not auto-attack once and proc his Mark of the Assassin. So overall, it's a very aggressive lane. Vladimir does have the advantage early on if he cannot get harassed while his Transfusion is off cooldown. So if he doesn't take a Mark of the Assassin, if he doesn't get auto-attacked, he's in a good spot. And this is actually why Vladimir is really good against some melee characters at this point in the game, just because you really can't deal with him very well. So they're just going to go ahead, pressure each other as much as they can. At this point, Yuzuki just has a bigger creep wave. So he will go ahead and just kind of win the harass war. Zion Spartan use his Shroud to go ahead and get his own harass off. They're both trying to do whatever they can to harass, stay relevant against the enemy, and do well. Now, it's obvious. It sounds obvious, but they're really trying to maximize how much farm they can get and how much aggression they end up taking in response. So Yuzuki doesn't want to take too many marks of the Assassin, but he knows if he trades Transfusions, it should be in his favor. And on Spartan, he actually misses some CS just because he's trying to stay out of range and not get harassed out of lane. Now, if you look at the CS2, Yuzuki went a bit crazy with the harass, and Vladimir has horrible, horrible auto-attack damage. Only 54 at level 3, one of the lowest in the game. It might actually be the lowest in the game. So, neither of them are doing too well in CS right now. And I have a question for you. Who's going to be more useful with low CS? Now, Vladimir has Hemoplague, so even if he doesn't have a lot of AP, he can always amplify the damage of his team. Akali doesn't have anything like that. So if both of them are far behind, and this will come up, who's going to be more relevant? It will be Vladimir just because he has amplification. If I had to choose support Vladimir or support Akali, I guess I would choose support Vladimir in the end. But the odd one shows up, he wants to gank, he wants to get this Akali snowball started. Vladimir is ahead by 1 CS, but he knows that if Akali has a kill on him, she can just go crazy, especially if they push this creep wave with the tower and deny experience. So here's the odd one. He's going to wait for Yuzuki to come out like that. He throws the sapling into this bush to give him vision so he can twist it advance, stop the pull, and just deal some damage. They don't get the cool, but I'm going to go ahead and slow down the game for this. Here's high. Now, Yuzuki's low on HP. He knows that the odd one is here. He knows that Zion Spartan is here. He wants to bait this out, and he does. He actually does not expect the flash, I believe, so that catches him off guard, and they just kind of wail on each other. Yuzuki does go down, dying to the odd one, which is a good thing, and the odd one dies to high. So they both trade. Both Akali and Vladimir get assists. There's a big old creep wave right here that is kind of just eliminating creeps. High, with his red buff, is actually really scary for Zion Spartan, especially because he can always block a spell, block a Mark of the Assassin. Doing so would actually dramatically affect the output from Zion Spartan, so he's going to be really cautious against him. And he can't push this wave up too far. High is going to try and freeze it and keep this wave close enough so Vladimir can take it. So Vladimir shows up back in lane, and what just happened right there? Well, Akali got a bit more CS before she went back to base, so she's spending 1,400 gold versus Vladimir's 1,200. But Vladimir just rushed Sork Shoes, and Akali just rushed 2 Amplifying Tomes. So not a lot was really done. In the end, it's fairly equal for both teams. The goal difference is slightly in favor of oRbit, but that has nothing to do with top lane right now. As my mouse freaked out there. Weird. So really, it was a trade. Both characters are equal, but both characters are pretty far behind. Vladimir has 21 CS, Akali has 18 CS. Then we have Intenso up down the bot lane with 48 CS. We have, everybody really at 30 or 20 CS. Actually, Paradox is kind of a little Morgana, so Swain might be doing some work there. But top lane is just kind of, behind everybody else. And once again, ask yourself, who's going to be better if they're behind everybody else, Vladimir or Akali? In this case, still Vladimir. He still has that Hemoplague. So, we'll go ahead, we'll fast forward, see some Yuzuki pressure in fast motion. He's gonna go ahead, spam Transfusion, try and apply some damage. He knows if Zion Spartan ever gets near him, though, he will lose a trade. And if you look at Zion Spartan, he's actually doing really well with Mark the Assassin, just as his only form of harass. Like, it actually does quite a bit of damage, and it really lays on the pain. But like they're running back and forth, eventually the creep wave gets a bit too big, and Yuzuki has sustained enough HP with his transfusion. So we're going to see a few cool things happen. They spot Paradoxical with that blue buff. They do not actually spot the odd one going over here, but they make an assumption. The odd one just took blue buff. He's not in this area. He's probably not going to gank bot lane. Paradoxical just is hanging out mid. We can spot him. They're going to do dragon, and they know that the odd one wants to go over here. So this is a form of trade. They will sacrifice a possible kill onto Yuzuki by getting dragon in response. And if you look at the gold, even if they kill Yuzuki right now, it will be in their favor. If they kill Yuzuki and get that top turret, well, in that case, they will have lost gold in the end. But Yuzuki will be able to farm safer without that turret if he gets pushed in. Yuzuki actually makes it out of there. Zion Spartan doesn't want to take too big a risk. If he went in, he actually might have died just to turret shots, which would have not been worth it. Paradoxical actually comes up to go ahead and finish Yuzuki, which I love. I love this little engage. It's a very odd engage. Morgana just a little bit too fast for him. Catches him. Maybe Pooh Bear shows up and picks up the kill. So, a kill and an assist versus a kill, a trade in favor of oRbit. Now, overall, oRbit is kind of saying, we don't care about our top lane. Our top lane can be behind, our top lane can be screwed. When Maokai goes top lane, what do they do instead of trying to back him up? They go straight for Dragon. And actually, Team Dynamic will find out about Dragon right now. When they're trying to get into a fight over this, counter gank, will they make sure Vladimir's safe? No. Vladimir will have Hemo Plague. He goes ahead, he dies, it's okay, because in the end, Hai is getting really scary. Hai is someone who's also farm dependent, and if he's far ahead, is kind of going to play a role similar to Akali. So they're focusing on making other characters stronger, other characters that aren't Vladimir, because they know that if they can keep Akali shut down at the low CS he's currently at, because he has to play safely because of all the fights going on, then they'll be in a good spot. And of course, the problem with Akali is that a lot of the times when they do fight, there's so many creeps that are going to be dying, like to the turret, or because they're pushed in, or just to the creep wave, that Zion Spartan actually falls behind. We can now watch Zion. We can now see why Zion wants to be ahead. Imagine if Zion was farther ahead right now. If he had, say, a pickaxe, another part of his revolver, or if Yuzuki just had level 1 boots. Yuzuki almost dies. He's close to dying right there. And the Mark of the Assassin is up for Zion Spartan. He has to back up, or at least use a health potion and be really safe. That's what Yuzuki does. He keeps training those health potions because he knows he's at such a risk of dying. This is what they wanted, but they're not quite at the point where Zion Spartan can just murder Yuzuki nonstop. So the plan from Team Dynamic, it makes a lot of sense. They're just not quite at the point where they want it to happen just because Akali got denied so much CS, and there were lots of trades going on. And she never actually got the kills herself. So Yuzuki, he's over here, we have Hai over here, we have the Awan over here. We're going to have another engagement like we saw before. And we'll go ahead, slow it down, and you can see the trade in action. So Zion Spartan going to keep trying to pressure Yuzuki. Yuzuki takes so much damage right there. Hai immediately comes up when the engagement starts. Yuzuki backs up, but does get twisted in advance by the Awan, trying to get out of there, but does get picked off. So now it's Hai versus 2 people, and as this happened, W Pooh Bear on Swain actually immediately went towards his top lane. So, just to speed it up a bit, Hai, trying to fight, actually misses his Q, flashes forward to finish off Akali, and here comes W Pooh Bear to go ahead and finish off the odd one. He misses his root actually, but they do catch him. There's a ward in this bush, and he's not getting away. So Hai is actually 3-0-0, terrifying on Nocturne, because eventually he will be going for the AD carry instead of just trying to CS. And with his ultimate, he'll get there, and he'll be a force to be reckoned with. But that trade, what happened? So Swain pushed this lane up to the top. These creeps will die to the turret, so CS being denied. Morgana will deny a few creeps to the turret, but Swain should be able to pick some of it up. And Swain knew that the fight should have been something equal, and he immediately went towards that top lane. And in doing so, he played expecting the trade. He played expecting that counter gank. And if you've been watching, this game has really just been Team Dynamic setting up a gank and oRbit counter ganking. And this is just a perception thing. oRbit knows Team Dynamic wants to kill top lane. This is something they do very commonly, and it's just something that's very clearly a good idea. But the problem is, when there's a good idea that's easily recognized, the enemy team knows that idea is there too, and they can punish it. And this is what oRbit is doing, and this is actually a good idea in response. And you know, it's almost kind of a circular thing where it's like, well, if I know the enemy wants to gank top lane, I will counter gank top lane. But they know I want to counter gank top lane, so maybe I shouldn't counter gank top lane. And let's look at Swain. Check out Swain. Swain's awesome at this point. He's 101, 73 CS. Zion Spartan and him are just kind of fighting. He's trying to sustain off the creep wave. They go on to him, and they chase him underneath the turret. Zion Spartan gets caught in the root, dies in the exchange. The L1 actually gets chased out. Does he pick him up? He does pick him up, just with an auto attack. And the Catalyst proc saves him from dying to minions. So the focus was on top lane for Team Dynamic, and because of that, they haven't really gotten ahead. So Pooh in that mid lane picks up 2 kills, has that dragon, has that CS. He is behind Paradoxical, but if you look at his overall gold, he's actually barely ahead. Wow. But they focused on top lane, trying to get Akalia under control or out of control, and as a result, Pooh on Swain was able to reach level 10, was able to get to a really good spot on Swain. Swain normally isn't considered too strong until like level 9 or so. Actually, mid lane. Actually, let me check that again, because I'm pretty sure Hai's ultimate just did no damage. So we actually have Paradoxical and Yuzuki fighting. Yuzuki actually able to do well against Morgana. Vladimir is just a good character against Morgana. Huh. That did no damage. I wonder what that bug is. But Vladimir able to do well against Morgana. So Vladimir is essentially in a good spot. Not picking up kills, still just getting assist. Has a lot of CS because you can pick it up so easily. And Zion Spartan, even though he doesn't have that kill, even though in terms of gold, well, he's behind by about 500. That's not a huge difference, but he just isn't as useful. And that's just because of the character, because of how the trades have been going. If he picked up the other 2 kills, he would be more effective, but he wouldn't necessarily be that useful, because looking at the overall gold in the game, we already have Ezreal at 4,500, Vladimir at 3,800. Like, there's a lot higher numbers, and being at 4,000 wouldn't be that significant. But the trades have gone on. It's been very odd, but they don't stop. They know that the enemy team wants to go ahead and focus on top lane. The example there is when Pooh goes up top lane. What does Team Dynamic do in response? They were expecting Vladimir, and they gank him, and it doesn't work out underneath the turret. And oRbit's just been playing this game focused on this top lane. Now, really quickly, why does Vladimir do well against Morgana? Vladimir can just keep attacking Morgana, like, non-stop. He can dodge a binding with his W. A very well-timed Sandwing pull when there's a team fight can actually dodge your ultimate. But pretty much you just dodge all of her stuff, and there's not a lot you can do. You're playing 2 different games. You get click harassment and AoE harassment, and she gets to try and land skill shots, and guess what? It's a lot easier to left-click on someone, where you smart cast, than to actually land a dark binding. Most of the time. Sometimes, you know, with brush, you know, binding is better, but if you're just both in lane, wagging at each other, it's in Vladimir's favor. Actually, if you do get the chance, you should try Vladimir versus Morgana. It's actually pretty effective. But that is beside the point. So, what has oRbit done now? Well, Vladimir's in the mid lane. He's effective against Morgana. Swain's now in the top lane, and Swain is incredibly effective against Akali. Like, if Swain does anything to Akali, she kind of dies. If he lands a binding or a root. And both teams, they know what's up. They know, like, what the other team wants to do. Pooh wants to pressure Zion Spartan. The odd one wants to pressure Pooh. Hai wants to pressure the odd one. And unfortunately, Yuzuki also comes up from mid because they know that this fight's going to go on as it is. Zion Spartan tries to get away. Unfortunately, the Fear does land, and you know, when the Fear lands, and you're invisible under a shroud, it doesn't matter. One Nocturne has oracles, and they pick off the odd one. And Paradoxical does come eventually, but he comes late. His binding is blocked, and overall, there's a fast team. They're able to go ahead and use their mobility to escape. And actually turn around here. I forgot this happened. But there's a clear pattern to what's going on in this game. The pressure goes top. Someone, usually Hai, backs them up. One time we did see Pooh do it on his own, and of course there was a time they ganked top lane, and they took Dragon as a response. But the pressure goes top lane. oRbit responds by sending 2 people. Team Dynamic tries to respond by sending one person, they end up losing the exchange, and they're being predicted. Now, Team Dynamic, they actually know this as is, so this will probably be a smaller issue for them in the future, but they're focusing on top lane and they're getting punished for it, and it really kind of sucks for them. We can go ahead and speed up a little bit. We actually did have a kill go onto the bot lane, and Intenso got picked up and the turret went down, but Intenso does have higher CS, he does have the Dragon Gold, so he's actually still a little bit farther ahead of Corki. By the way, Intenso on Ezreal is terrifying, even if he doesn't pull as far as Ezreal. So, once again, they just keep swaying up here. Akali can't farm, can't do well against him. 76 CS versus 111 CS. And overall, it's looking so good for oRbit. And it's really odd how this worked out. This was just entirely strategy. This was entirely like, alright, we know Swain can do well against Morgana early. We know Vladimir can keep up a little bit of pressure. They managed to balance out the ganks. And right now, Team Dynamic, they're just in a bad spot. They're behind in kills, behind in gold. Odd1's getting ganked in his own jungle. Zig is getting ganked in his own lane. Like, 2 flashes were just blown for pretty much nothing, just a bit of time being wasted. No turrets go down, nothing goes down. This blue buff, it's gonna be stolen. Okay, there's one that the other one actually smites over the wall. It might be a different game though. It was a little silly thing. And there is no good response from Team Dynamic. Actually, when they do try and push it, like this turret for example, we see Ezreal ult kill the creeps there, which is just an awesome little thing. It's like, alright, you guys want to go ahead and try and take our turret, our top turret and our mid turret? Well, you guys can get top, we're not going to stop that, but we'll get bottom, which is going to be an important turret because this is only really pushable when Baron is down, and we'll go ahead and make sure you can't take mid. And actually, on that note, they're just rotating around, they're just being aggressive. They're ahead and they're trying to stay ahead. Paradoxical on his own, what the hell can he do right now? He can't ult, he can't do anything in response. He actually ults the last second, but like there's just nothing he can do in these cases. And this is kind of how you play League of Legends as a pro player. You get ahead, then you get farther ahead, which I might even said. No, I did not say that last daily. But the reason for this is because once you get a little bit of an advantage, a few thousand gold, you can start taking objectives like the turrets. You can start taking objectives like Baron. And you can get just to such a dominant position you can't really die. But overall, TD doesn't have a response right now. Zahn's part just isn't effective. This, of course, is not the end of the game. There is a 20-minute break before this game ends, and we're going to see a lot of crazy things happen. But this is the part of the game where oRbit just does what they want, and they take use of it. They know they're ahead, and Dragon goes down. They've taken 3 turrets. There was a really long pause right there, which is why a million messages and these disconnects just came up, but they're back, don't worry. And overall, oRbit, what is their plan now? They've taken these turrets, the laning phase is over, they've lost their turret, they're actually equal on turrets taken right now. They can take these top turrets, they can start pressuring Baron, they can really just start engaging in team fights. They can fight on their terms in pretty much any situation, minus, like a 1v4 or just an engagement where they're down on people. And of course, don't forget that High on Nocturne has his ultimate to close any sort of gap. So they have the oracles, they just kind of clean up the wards, get control of the map again, and they're just going to take out these outer turrets. And in doing so, they have Baron as a really good option, and they're setting up for team fights. But any team fight they get into, just because of their gold lead, is going to be so far in their favor that they'll gladly do it. That was a misclick. That was not on purpose, but they're still able to go ahead, take control of the map, even though Nocturne uses his ult on absolutely nothing. I mean, I guess they blocked the vision and safely took out this ward. Good job. You did it, oRbit. You killed the ward. But they're ahead, they're going to stay ahead, they're going to take out this turret. And the reason I say they have good Baron pressure is because these creeps will push up to this turret eventually. If they take out this turret, it's kind of the same deal. They have inhibitor turrets being pressured. You want to try and minimize the damage those inhibitor turrets take. And also, when creeps are pushed up, when you're pushed to your inhibitor turrets, you don't have vision from them. So it's a resource you don't see the monetary value of. It's a resource that you see on your mini-map, which is, if you look at oRbit's vision, they have a lot of vision over here because they have a big creep wave. If we look at Team Dynamics, they don't have crap across the map because they're pushed in so much. They have some stuff over here, but that's it. So all of a sudden, all these entrances to Baron, all these exits to Baron, so like this area right here, They can come in from this direction. They're not going to get spotted, for example. All across the map, they could go ahead and enter from over here once they push out these creeps. And with the 6,000 gold lead, they can actually start baiting Baron. Baiting Baron is something really scary, actually. You have to make sure you don't do something like bait Baron, decide you can actually finish it, and their jungler steals it. But a fight will now start in terms for Team Dynamic. So we'll go ahead and watch this at normal speed. I'll slow down and check it again. Just go ahead, look for details of your own. Try and see what happens, because this was a very crazy fight. There is a method to how Team Dynamic won, though. There's High. Yeah, High. He's gonna try and get out. He will escape. And TD does something really smart. They see High getting away, and they retreat, and they go to Baron. But let's go ahead and watch that fight in slow motion. We're actually gonna go ahead and start. That was odd. Start watching from over here. So Yuzuki actually gets spotted over here. They decide to chase him, decide to engage on him. Akali jumps to a creep, and this is where the fight starts. So it's right now a bunch of people from oRbit versus 4 people, or 4 people from oRbit versus 5 people from Team Dynamic. They burst down Vladimir immediately. Paradoxal gets an amazing ult off. Pixel gets a good ult to block people into the wall so they can't really escape. Nubby Pooh Bear is taking a lot of damage, but unfortunately he wasn't dealing a whole lot in the process. Like he's not super damaging at this point. He's tanky, but not that scary. And because the front line died so quickly, Utenso has no protection, and he just immediately dies. So, quick, 4x speed to go ahead and catch up. So Team Dynamic, they got a great pick that's led to more picks, and this actually leads to a question. When do you engage in team fights? When do you actually go ahead and fight? This is something people ask me all the time, and before I used to say something really obvious. If it's a fight where you can do something, go in. If it's a fight where you're going to lose, don't go in. Now it's really clear. If you're ahead, or not if you're ahead, but if you know that if you go there you will die and do nothing and it will suck, don't go in. If it's a fight where you know you can just wreck them, go in. But the dubious fights, those fights that you do not know what will happen, now that is something that I actually kind of wondered about. I thought about it like, alright, when do you actually go into these engagements? When should I fight if I don't know what's going to happen? And there's a lot of different perspectives, and the one that I see happening the most is for solo queue games, you do whatever the hell you want. Nobody cares. Everybody's just like, whatever, I'm playing solo queue. For pro games, for tournament games, you see someone on your team get caught out, and you think you might be able to help them, but you're not sure, you help them. You go immediately towards them, and you're just like, whatever, I'm going to try and do something. And there's a reason for that. One pick in a game like this can lead to so much. It can lead to, Barons being taken, fights being lost. Imagine if High had been able to get to that fight really quickly with his ultimate up. It could have been a completely different story. So, one person being down means so much in this game that at this level, almost all the time, when somebody's cut out, their team will back them up. Sometimes they will lose a lot of ground for it, but they know that if they do let one person get caught out and there is no response, they're going to lose a lot of ground anyways. But we're now at a point in the game where Team Dynamic has Baron. They're behind on gold still, but Baron makes up for that. Baron is usually quite a large chunk of gold, or stats in gold? Golden stats, I guess. Of course, it is temporary, though, so they have to try to make use of it. They push out these bottom turrets, which is safe because, well, Baron's dead. They no longer have to worry about it. They actually get caught out by High. So High uses ultimate to engage. Doesn't have Oracle, so Spartan does have a brief moment of safeness. And, oh, zoomed in. The fight starts. So, this is a really odd fight. It's just a bunch of big spells exploding, and in the end, the people who need to get focused for Team Dynamic, and the people who need to get focused for oRbit, the ones for oRbit don't die. Ezreal does die, High does die. But Nubby Pooh Bear survives. He's able to go ahead and chase at full HP. You have to burst down swing quickly, because if you don't, he will just sustain throughout the fight and be really scary. So now 2 people die on both sides, but it's actually a better trade. So back to trading. What does Team Dynamic have? They have Barons on almost all their team. They lost 2 Barons right there on Corki and Akali, 2 of the best people to have Baron on, especially Akali. who scales with both stats because of the her passive she has. So that was a good example of another trade. Sacrifice 2 of your own members, Nocturne and Ezreal, 2 very important characters still, for 2 of their important characters, but they have Baron, and in dying they lose their buff. So the gold lead, once again, only 2,000, but if we look at who has the gold on both teams, well, Vladimir and Akali, they're not doing that badly anymore. They're still fairly low compared to the rest of the team. Akali at 8,400, and we have Maokai at that level. Morgana's a little bit farther ahead, as well as Corki, so she's the second lowest on her team. Vladimir, he's actually second highest on his team, just because he started picking up kills, and he was able to CS so well for such a long time. So, the Baron buff is gone on 2 people. It actually has fallen from the rest of the team. Now is the time for oRbit to respond with their own pressure, their own aggression. They know they were ahead. Number-wise, they should still be a bit ahead, but they know it's a much closer game. And they have to go ahead and start team fights in ways that will work for them. So importantly, Navi Pooh Bear has to survive for a decent amount of time. This lets his sustained damage go out. This lets him go ahead and just really do the damage with Ravenous Flock, but more importantly, get at least 2 casts of Torment out. Now, Torment doesn't seem like a very damaging spell, but that 20% damage increase it does is super scary. And he has to survive. Vladimir also has to survive for a couple waves, and Intenso needs to survive for as long as possible. It's actually a very interesting composition because there is no clear tanky character. Hai is relatively tanky, but he only has 2,000 HP. He doesn't have 100 magic resist. There is no real tanky character for oRbit, while Team Dynamic does have the odd one, who is 192 armor, fairly low magic resist, but he also has more HP. So it's going to be all about good positioning and good CC and control from oRbit. And they're really going for catches right now. This is a really cool fight. We're going to actually go ahead and focus on Intenso's positioning for it. So the fight goes in, they go for Paradoxal, and watch Intenso. Let's watch Intenso. What does he do? He hides over here. He lets him get a great ultimate, which almost hits Zion Spartan actually. It only hits Paradoxal in the end, but he stays safe in that corner. He doesn't get focused. Zion Spartan tries to go after him, but he's able to go ahead and retreat directly into that bush and be safe. As that all goes on, the damage goes off. From oRbit, the scary characters that need to survive, and they're able to just clean up this fight and win. Pixel and Zion Spartan both retreat, and they're both just going to get away because they know that right now oRbit just wants to push forward. And that was a very close fight in the end. If they'd had that 2,000 gold difference erased during that Baron presence, for example, we might have seen Team Dynamic do more, or if Akali had been further ahead, she might have been able to instantly burst down Intenso and keep up the chase. But that didn't happen. Elimination did go down, but rest in peace, Soraka. You dying for 2 people, let's just say that's a good trade. Because you're a support who only does so much. The inhibitor goes down. And let's go ahead and fast forward a bit. Baron should be respawning soon. Both TD and oRbit know this. They know that with that inhibitor down, they can go ahead and apply a lot of pressure once Baron responds, and Team Dynamic also knows this. So what do they do in response to being scared of Baron? They go ahead and set up to do it themselves, just as soon as it spawns. So Baron spawns here. Here's oRbit ready to catch them pretty much. Like, there's a big creep wave over here, but who cares about that? There's action over here. And the Baron is started. This is pretty much the last attempt from Team Dynamic to just kind of hold on to the game. It's a very cool fight. So now Pooh Bear engages from over here. He's getting bursted by both Corki and Akali. Pixel pushes him with a great ult over here, but that flash, that amazing flash, gets him over the wall, away from the enemy team. Zion Spartan keeps trying to chase him, but now he's seeing a lot more damage. Alwyn, tried to zone out the enemy team, dies in the process, and there's just a good chase going on. So that was an amazing fight, just because Pooh Bear had the best flash in the world. And unfortunately, with just how far ahead oRbit was, Team Dynamic can't really put much of a fight up. Paradoxal is trying to do some damage. They know they can't get this Baron. Once that Baron goes down, they'll go ahead and be able to take out the outer turrets, really take control of the game, and pretty much win it. But they can't stop it. The Baron does go down, and Intenso actually tries to catch Paradoxal, which he will. Fortunately, Morgana not really known for being able to escape Nocturnal. And this is the part of the game that I always mention. When you have Baron buff, you take outer turrets, so just this turret up here really. You start pressuring the inner turrets, and when that inhibitor is down, you let this creep wave build up over here. It'll eventually build up, push towards the Nexus turrets, and they have two choices: defend a Nexus turret or defend their inhibitor turret. So if it's 4 defending, you could just push it and kill it. If it's 5 defending, then eventually Nexus turrets will start taking damage and dying. So this is really a part of the game that's almost a method. And once they start doing it, it's almost impossible to stop if you're too far behind. It's only a 6,000 gold difference, but they just haven't been able to kill Swain quickly enough. He will soon have what looks like to be a Zhonya's, and when that happens, he will have just free HP regeneration during that 2-second window. So Team Dynamic, they're not in a good spot. This is kind of like the guillotine falling. I've said this before on streams. But if an enemy plays well, it's not necessarily impossible to stop yourself from dying, but the odds go from, this is a 50-50 chance you'll win, to it's like a 90% chance they'll win, to 10% chance you'll win. Which is actually a good design, because if you're too far behind, then you should be punished for it. Though, and of course, good play and good skill and good moves can really still win you a game. So they try and put up a bit of a fight at this turret. They will not be successful. I mean, if the turret has no HP, there's no reason to defend it. They know it. And we kind of get into that same process where we have things pushing up over here. They're going to try and catch people out with, Swain's Root, with pokes from Ezreal, pokes from Vladimir, and just, whittle someone down and hopefully get a kill off that. And of course, they know these creeps will build up. These creeps are actually building up quite a bit. And they will have just map control. This is actually a really good move from Team Dynamic, by the way. They go ahead and spread out really quickly when the enemy creeps are still back here. So Morgana clears this wave over here. She can't clear this wave quickly enough. But the creeps haven't reached the turret yet, and they can't apply pressure without them because they'll just die to the turret. So, good ball play from Team Dynamic. And the creeps spawn, they apply pressure, they put some hits down. That's just, standard. Like, both teams are trading, but there's so much HP regeneration because of Soraka and the Baron buff that Team Dynamic, they're losing these trades in the end. This inhibitor does respawn, oRbit immediately rotates, and it's really hard to hold an inhibitor like this against 5 people with Baron buff. Baron buff is almost over, so that is the advantage. Alwan gets cut out, we have a big ol' fight now. Paradoxal gets a great ult, but so immediately retreats. And Paradoxal just cannot stay alive quickly enough. It's unfortunate, but good focus and good burst goes a long way. So back to the pushing with Paradoxical dead, they really can't stop top lane from going down. Like, they can try and poke a lot, they can try and throw saplings. They do apply a lot of damage. I fast forward through this fight for way too long. But this is just kind of, we're ahead and we're winning because we're ahead. Though, Lemonation dies to red buff, which I find hilarious. And I actually thought that Team Dynamic surrendered at this point in the game. My ability to remember basic things are gone. But with 2 people down, Paradoxal does respawn, does have his ultimate up in 30 seconds, but they're able to clean up this turret, apply damage, kill Pixel, sorry Janna, die. And when the game at this point, this is just how you finish a game. It's really not different between games, which is kind of unfortunate, but it happens. I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of this. There's not a whole lot of interesting things going on, because, what the hell, there are 3 inhibitor turrets down, the game ends in 2 minutes. It's just going to be a quick attempt at Baron from Team Dynamic, I believe. Now, they might just pick up Baron themselves. We'll see in a second. But oRbit just goes ahead and groups up. They're waiting towards Baron, they know it should be up soon. It spawns, they start doing it. Right now, Team Dynamic cannot stop it. If they go out, they know if they lose a person, they'll lose the game just because 3 inhibitors are down. And this is what I call the 3 inhibitor push. With 3 inhibitors down, we have super minions spawning. There are 6 super minions entering this base at a time, which is huge. They do about 300 damage each, actually more than that. And they apply pain. And because there are so many of them, they will just kill people on their own. And then if you're there to back up too, guess what? You're going to kill them too. And at this point, Team Dynamic, what can they do? But, well played from oRbit Gaming. This actually won the tournament. This was good for them. It was good, man. But that is neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and review what we saw today. So, there's my hand. I hope you liked it. Today we saw some good trading going on. To review what happened, top lane, they had Vladimir versus Akali. That was going to be in favor of Vladimir if he could just passively farm. Akali, though, wanted to start snowballing, wanted to really apply damage and pressure. But unfortunately, both teams knew this. So oRbit, in response to the constant ganks coming out from the odd one who was subbing for Team Dynamic, they were able to win their engagements because they set themselves up to win them. They set little traps, and Team Dynamic kept falling for them because they knew that if Akali got ahead, it would be really bad for them, and they knew that's what Team Dynamic wanted to do. So they kept doing this. Eventually, Vladimir was ahead, so they shifted him middle, where he could still do well against Morgana because it was a good matchup. And top lane was Swain versus Akali, but Akali was so far behind, Swain just kind of dominated them. Eventually, they went ahead, split up, started pushing down turrets. Akali got a decent amount of farm, and they got a pick on Vladimir, which led to a team fight, which the rest of oRbit tried to fight him because they knew that with Yazuki down, they were most likely going to lose a lot of ground anyways, and in doing so, they actually went 4-0, lost Baron buff, and actually lost High Red after with his oracles. Despite that, a good trade comes out from oRbit. They're able to go ahead, knock off a couple Baron buffs, stop a push in doing so, and just win an engagement because of an amazing flash from W Pooh Bear. And with that Baron buff, they just kind of won the game at that point. But still had to spend a few minutes doing the pleasantries of killing the inhibitors and killing turrets. So, trading though. At the end, when do you trade? When it will be better for you? When is it better for you? That's a hard question to answer. There's a basic level, which is just like, if your gold number will be higher than their gold number, then yeah, trade, do it, go crazy. If not, if there's no clear answer like that, kind of think of the situation. If you're going to trade with like an AD carry, are you an AD carry too? Are you going to be better mid to late game? Is it going to be better for you early game if you get this kill? Can you snowball off of it? Will they snowball off of your kill? If you're going to go ahead and trade auto attacks, it's kind of the same thing. Well, will I win this trade because will there be creeps to back me up with a call for help? Will I have a higher auto attack damage? Do I have a Soraka just spamming Astral Blessing on me, using those like rings of light to heal me up? And trading is never something you can really consistently look at and be like, this will be a situation that's good for us. oRbit did, and it was a very specific situation. I cannot say that you should always try and counter gank top lane and try to get equal on kills because your top lane will be better without farm, because sometimes it's not the case. But every time you go for a trade, think, am I really coming ahead of this in the end? And in coming ahead of it, like, is it worth the risk? If I'm just going to be like 5 gold ahead, but I take a massive risk, who cares? If I'm going to be able to, just completely devastate their lane if I get a good trade-off, because of like a big creeper will die to their or to our turret or something like that, then yeah, go crazy, go nuts. But this is Studio, going ahead. I'm going to be signing off for now. I will actually be doing another video for this weekend, and actually be casting some solo mid invitationals. So I'll see you guys then. The Studio is saying adios, though.